All right, welcome back. President as policymaker. All right, so again, we're revisiting one of the roles of the president we spoke about in the previous video, chief legislator. Again, this one kind of stands out with its importance. Again, how can he be chief legislator when he's not part of the legislative branch? Well, again, he has a couple roles, one before the legislation and one after. So before and after Congress does their thing, the president proposes legislation. So Obama, we need economic stimulus because of this, the Great Recession, or we need to expand healthcare. But the president does not introduce it in Congress. So that's something that only a member of Congress can do, is actually introduce the bill. So the president can't do that, but he does propose, and then he works with members of Congress, and then they introduce it for him. Then once it has gone through the lawmaking process, he is able to sign or veto the legislation. All right, so again, something else he can do at this point is he can add a signing statement. So first of all, what is a signing statement? Well, it's a written comment issued by the president when signing a bill. So you see a political cartoon bill, or a political cartoon version of this happening. George Bush was known to have written a large number of signing statements. So he signs the bill, so it becomes law, but then he writes a separate note, essentially, where he says, this is how I interpret this law. And so I'm going to ignore sections 14, 15, and 16 because I think that they're stupid. Or I think section 12 is unconstitutional. Or I think section 8 should be something that the states do and not the federal government. And he says things like that, or he says, I'm going to direct the bureaucratic agencies to do this and this about this bill. So this is kind of a major loophole where he's not vetoing the bill, he is signing it, it is becoming law, but since the president is the one who executes the law and actually enforces it, he's kind of telling us how he's going to have that law enforced, which may not be exactly how Congress intended. So this is clearly going to create tension with Congress. All right, again, we spoke about this one earlier as well, a little bit more detail now with executive orders. So we know that this is a rule issued by the president, has the power of law. It doesn't require any congressional action. Now, something that's not on here right now, but was talked about previously and needs to be restated here, is to remember that executive orders, the president can't use them for anything he wants. Obama, Trump, president, whatever, they can't tax you through an executive order. They can't make laws like Obamacare couldn't be an executive order because it had things that Congress had the power to do, to regulate and to make laws. So these have to do specifically with the federal government, with the executive branch. So Obama did raise the minimum wage for all federal executive branch employees. He's allowed to do that. He was not allowed to raise the minimum wage for all people in the country. Only Congress can do that. So executive orders are going to lead to conflict with the congressional agenda quite often. So Obama, again, he famously made an executive order about immigration. After Congress refused to take up the issue and to pass a law, he made an executive order, and so that put him in direct conflict with Congress and what they were trying to do. Now here's two drawbacks to using executive orders, because you might be like, well, why don't presidents just always do this? Well, this third bullet point, unlike a law, an executive order can be overturned by the next president. All the new president has to do is issue a new executive order. And so this happened to a lot of Obama's executive orders. As soon as the next president got in, he immediately issued new executive orders overturning Obama's. That's not the case with a law. A law is much more difficult to get rid of, has to go back through the entire process in Congress again. It's much tougher. And then another one, this is a political reality, is that a president using executive orders too often gets criticized because it's seen as the president's way of avoiding checks and balances. So this is seen as him being sort of going against the spirit of the Constitution. Now note, they are completely and totally allowed to do executive orders, so it's not unconstitutional. There's nothing legally wrong with it, but this is how it looks to the public, as if the president is grabbing too much power for himself, trying to make himself into a king or emperor or something like that. It's just, as you have a political cartoon there, you see the idea of the criticism there, with as if Obama is shredding the Constitution by making executive orders. And you can see the number of executive orders. I don't like this graphic, it's kind of backwards, but you can see that they have decreased dramatically in the last several decades, with almost every president doing fewer than the one before him. mostly because of that public criticism that's associated with them. All right, executive agreements. Presidents love making executive agreements. They're just like treaties. Same exact idea. The president meets with leadership from another country. They make an agreement just like they would in a treaty. The major difference and the major appeal to the president is that they don't require Senate confirmation. So he gets to make that policy directly with the foreign head of state. No worries about fighting the Senate because it doesn't require anything from them. All right, so the overall idea of this video has been that we're going to see a lot of tension between the president and Congress. So you have a statement here from College Board, really. This is where I took this. As a result of the lawmaking process, nomination, Senate confirmation, congressional oversight, and the president's ability to issue executive orders, so you have a bunch of different reasons there, there are frequent confrontations between Congress and the president. So you view it as like a tug of war between Congress and the president, and they're fighting over power. Again, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button. This has been a La Money production.